Okay. Okay, thank you so much for the reminder, Kyle.
Sure.
All right, so should we just do a quick approval of the minutes? Can I get a motion to approve or approve by consensus rather the minutes that were prepared for last week?
I have a quick question. So on the minutes, if you do a printout, I guess it would be page 2 under lessons learned from other charters. I think it was just the way Sharon maybe captured it. There's a line that basically follows. SJC passed a resolution on issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion last year. She found, referring to you, Jane, the signed resolution on the website wasn't easy to find the final version online. It's a solid resolution in many ways, but it's policy. And I'm not sure, I don't know if anyone used that word policy. I think that's a little bit, I mean, I could live with it, but I think the difference between resolution and ordinance maybe was the conversation at the time.
No, it had to do with the resolution not being structural like as part of the charter.
Okay. So
Do you want me to, Kyle, would you like me just to go ahead and just slightly amend that, the wording there? Sharon, would you like me to, or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I don't have
okay.
any heartburn about it, but if someone reads this from the public, I think it's a little bit, it does confuse the issue just a little bit. That was it. That's all I saw there. The rest looks great.
Okay. And I was taking notes as well, Sharon, when we were hearing from Kevin about, not Kevin Carter, Kevin Ranker, about that resolution. So I can just refer back to my notes as well. And so what I propose is just to edit that text a little bit, Sharon, and then maybe send it to you to review, make sure it's consistent with what your notes and recollection is.
Actually, maybe I spoke too soon because Kyle, maybe, maybe in saying it's policy, that might be as opposed to law. I'm really not sure because that wasn't my word.
Yeah,
I was the one who said it.
Yeah, and I think it was a conversation between us and Kevin Ranker. I think Kevin was the one who was referring to the fact that resolutions are not as binding as an ordinance would be,
right.
and therefore it's really up to the county council and manager how they want to proceed in the implementation of that resolution.
Okay, my understanding was that, well, that's not it. That is not in the structure of the charter right now. So that's
Correct.
what we want to do. But maybe we should get some clarification from Kevin Ranker also.
Sure.
And that's why it comes up, because I think that's a target I have for today with Mr. Carter's time, is to talk about what in the work that they've done resolution wise, what can we pull from that and reformat so it is charter language potentially, or more structural.
Okay.
So I didn't mean to derail our time.
Just always want to say hi to Dave. I know Dave is listening in. Hi, Dave.
Dave
Anderson. Dave Anderson.
Oh, okay. I don't see him. Okay. All right. So I'm conscious of the fact that we have a guest here. So
Yes.
In terms of the minutes, do we want to just agree to approve those minutes with that minor editorial clarification? Sorry. That perhaps. Okay. Excellent. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, just say aye. Okay, excellent. Thanks, guys. So Sharon, I'll work with you on just fine tuning those that particular reference in the minutes. That's with Kevin's input. Okay. Now, in terms of our agenda, we need to shake things up a little bit because agenda item 5 would be a discussion with Kevin. Would need to bump it in front of 4. So out of respect for Kevin's time today.
Yes.
Otherwise, is the agenda okay as it is?
I'm betting there was some conversation about how to present more of our consolidated final list at the Wednesday meeting. But I'm okay putting that off if we don't have to discuss that and we get short on time. Unless that's something we need to act on, I'm okay with kicking that back a week.
Yeah, me too. I was thinking the same thing, and it may be that if we get input from the town hall, we'll want to consider that as well anyway. So, but I agree. Maybe it's just something we can be thinking about in our minds prior to the meeting on next Monday. So yeah, if we run short of time. Okay. So let's just move to bringing Kevin into the scene here for this meeting. Thank you so much for being present, and apologies for the hiccup in getting connected, but we really appreciate that you're here. And maybe you could just start off by briefly introducing yourself, and then we can just we can perhaps frame the conversation a bit. And we're not expecting a presentation.
Right.
We really, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then Kyle and I agreed we would just give you a bit of a sense, after he's already spoken with you anyway, about what we're hoping to hear from you on.
Okay. Well, my name is Kevin Carter. I live on the island. I've lived on the island, Orcas Island, full time since 2016. Had a home on the island since 2005. I've been in the diversity and inclusion field, now I guess equity, diversity and inclusion field for more than 25 years. So I've been the D&I leader for companies like BP and Campbell's Soup and Safeco. And my, connection with this is I led an effort to get a resolution adopted. It was the San Juan County Safe and Inclusive Community Resolution. It was kind of a mixture of some what would be traditionally a resolution in terms of sort of a vision statement and some values, along with some action items, which would be more like an ordinance. So it kind of combined the two of them because of that. And I would say probably close to 350 people now that I actually checked. I thought it was lower than that till I actually, when I talked to Kyle, made me want to go back and check, but it really was about 300 people, 340 people or so signed the resolution. And it was adopted in, I want to say late September, but it was adopted as a resolution. And those things that were the action items were kind of stripped from it. So when it was finally adopted, it had more of a resolution field. And then the action items, which had more of the ordinance field, were supposed to be acted upon by the council. And I think they had started to work on them, but then obviously we had a change in our county representation in terms of Cindy and not Rick. So, and I have had a conversation with Cindy maybe about, I want to say 3 weeks ago, and she said they kind of want to get to, don't let the momentum die. That there would be a group pulling together to make sure that the momentum did not die. And so that's kind of where we are on the resolution front. Almost simultaneously, the Orcas Community Foundation had funded a project on economic recovery and resiliency that canvassed the ideas throughout the whole island around how to make the island more, increase its resiliency and its ability to recover, pretty much in relationship to COVID and some other issues. But having said that, inclusion and anti-racism was one of the key planks that were adopted by a majority of the people there. So one committee that came out of that work was the inclusion and an anti-racism committee as a part of the community foundation. I facilitate that group, and essentially at this point we took as a starting place the action items from the resolution that weren't adopted. Plus, we gathered even more ideas from people around what they wanted to do to bring alive the mission of that subcommittee, and we came up with a platform. And at this point, I've done some education in cultural competence in the school district. Some other people are doing some other things, but we're actually structurally trying to, I think the foundation is looking to bring in a project manager So those of us like myself who are, you know, experts in the field who are doing work aren't also trying to manage committees, which means that things just don't get done. And so that's kind of where we are, where at least the committee has, I think, has a good feeling for what people would like to work on and like to see happen, and a fair amount of people who are interested in bringing it alive, but now need sort of more of some administrative structural help to make it happen. Hope that wasn't too long, but that gives you kind of an idea where we are.
Not too long at all. Yeah, so why don't I just, that's extremely helpful. And I imagine we all have some questions we want to follow up with you. Why don't we just mention briefly what sort of our effort is about in terms of this particular committee and how that relates to what we're really wanting to think very seriously about vis-a-vis amendments to the charter potentially that could address issues of say justice and equity in a way that they are certainly not now. So we wanted to bring you in, Kevin, because Kevin Ranker explained that yes, indeed, you've been in the weeds in this county a lot since last year, and you helped with the development of some of that wording that ended up in the resolution, and the action items kind of got left out there, right? So I think something that would be helpful for us to explore in the few minutes we've got today, while we've got you, is your thoughts about what this group might want to be contemplating in terms of potential amendments to the charter that might enable that charter to say something meaningful, that would be structural, that could be support in place for the longer term to sort of uphold, you know, these fundamental principles of justice and equity and diversity, and et cetera, the ones that are in the resolution. I think the feeling that our group had after our discussion last week was that the resolution is kind of, it can be seen as a bit light. And so that's what is our challenge before us, is as a committee committed to justice and equity, what could the charter say about those issues? So I'm going to leave it there, and either, yeah, Kevin, if you want to respond to that, or Kyle, Sharon, if you wanted to have some follow-on questions for Kevin.
I'd like to have Kevin respond, and then I might say something after that.
Okay. So I'm not gonna share. Let me see. I should be able to. Let me grab something here.
Okay.
I'm gonna go to just excuse me getting there.
No
You're
problem.
probably seeing a presentation right now, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is I just want to. I want to get to something here, and.
And Kyle and Sharon, I don't know about you guys, but I'm super interested to hear a little bit more about this committee that's been struck within this
Very much so,
Focus
yeah.
Foundation group. So let's hopefully before Kevin leaves us, he can. fill us in.
So at the end of the day, now, I can send you the resolution. So the resolution had a series of, and actually, so let me actually go there. So
just so you know, Kevin, Kevin Ranker shared the ordinance, which is yet unnumbered, with us. And so the resolution I have not seen, but the ordinance that's drafted for discussion, we do have access to.
Yeah,
okay.
and Kyle, last week, the resolution was sent to us by Randy Gaylord.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you've seen this part of it, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right. And so essentially then, in terms of the committee, this is kind of what came out of sort of the focus areas. And so we kind of really landed at, and I want to feel like there's like a couple missing that I cut off from the application, but essentially we kind of fell into some communication things, some education, and some applications. And I want to say that something got cut off there. So I'm going to do this. So we went through and we had this process where we looked at everything. We did a impact effort matrix, and we really landed at these as sort of same thing, but I thought some were cut it off. And sort of what rose to be of most importance. So people were really talking about, you know, what kind of education we're going to provide, maybe some available to the public on anti-racism or just cultural competence or equity. How do we put some of this into the school board and with teachers? And I've been working on that specifically. How do we then evolve this into curriculum at grade levels in the school? And so that I've kind of been kind of working on with an organization that is the School Board Steering and Equity Committee. So work is taking place, I would say, at least in 2 and 3. Am interested in the committee to how do we make some things available to the public and then for county education. So education did rise up as an important thing. Then we kind of got some areas that were really important that came from the were also in the resolution.
Mhm.
But I think people, to a certain degree, wanted these things to happen, but we really didn't have the folks that had the expertise really to make that happen. And so I think this is a lot of ones where we talk about, you know, how are we going to, you know, develop some restorative justice programs, throughout the island. How are we going to, you know, call on the county sheriff to review some of the policies and procedures to make sure, you know, how are we going to work with the prosecutor's office, and are we going to establish a sort of bilingual and a bicultural community advocate for folks in the community? And then finally, you know, what is the nature of our relationship with First Nations and how we can improve it? This was kind of the area where I would say where folks had high aspirations, but I don't think, at least no one in the sort of the committee literally out, you know, had the, you know, I always say you have to have a degree of, positional power, positional influence and knowledge to get things happen. So folks had a degree of knowledge, but in terms of being at a point where they can make a difference and make these vision come to life, I think this is where a lot of this stuff is really, really important. But I think having someone in place to make it happen, at least in terms of the committee level, you had a lot of people who want to help and who have a passion, but they don't necessarily know all the ins and outs and intricacies to make some of these things happen. And so I would say this is where the opportunity is, unlike sort of in education where I can go like, well, yeah, I've got contacts with the school board. We're working on some stuff. I see light at the end of the tunnel. On these, I'm like, okay, I don't know nobody. I don't know the county. I mean, I've had a chance to meet the county sheriff. We talked about some things, but we don't have an ongoing relationship, nor do I have one at the prosecutor's office. So I think taking these and saying, okay, what do these really mean? What does success look like? And where are they best positioned to have some kind of outcome is a next step there. Because I tend to see them more as aspirations that were the outcome of the resolution that now needed to almost be translated into, you know, I always say like SMART goals. They need to be translated into SMART actions, you know, specific, measurable, you know, attainable, relevant, and time bound. You know, they need to be edited in that kind of way.
Yeah.
And herein lies our challenge too, I think. Not, you know, I talked to Kevin just a little bit about maybe having some mechanism or some space to kind of, you know, focus on some of the stuff in more of the preamble sort of Bill of Rights end of things. But then in terms of teeth and structure in the charter, these kinds of things are, these action items or applications are probably more more easily generated, but then fitting them into the charter and figuring out how to structure those. I mean, some of those are specific, generating a potential position within county government in order to be able to move some of this forward. And some of them are more, the aspiration part makes their fit far more challenging. And then we have, of course, the added complexity of phrasing it. And Kevin Ranker had thought last week that the actual public buy-in or the voter buy-in would actually be more simple, I think, than I did. But there's that piece, so we can do all this homework and work really carefully on how to structure this or how to fit some of this stuff in. But then it still has to go before the voters in the general election. So this is helpful. This helps me. I do have one question for you, Kevin. How much do you have a sense of, was there any cross-pollination across islands with this? Did you have any non-Orcas people take part?
We had Orcas people take part in the resolution development and in quote action items from it. So in the build up to the resolution, yes. In this next phase, this is shifted really to Orcas specific, but
Okay.
the resolution, those signatures encompassed all of San Juan, all of the islands. And so we did a big push on the different islands to get signatures and to get ideas from it. So their ideas are wedded in the platform for the subcommittee for Orcas Island. However, but we just don't have the bandwidth, to sort of say, how do we make sure that we're not doing this just for Orcas, but for all the San Juan Islands. We just don't have the bandwidth.
Mhm, mhm. So can I just ask you a question then? Well, Sharon, did you want to put a question to Kevin right now, or what? Yeah, or should I
No,
go
go
ahead?
ahead. That's okay. Go ahead.
It was just going to be about the committee he spoke about, the one on inclusion and anti-racism that we were just seeing. If I'm correct, those items that you just showed us are the result of the work of that committee. Is that right?
Yeah, it would say it was. It's the bulk of it comes from the work that created the resolution.
Okay.
Because many of those action items that you see in the platform for the subcommittee came from the action items from the resolution, where we said, hey, you know what? Yay, we passed this resolution, but we've got to get some of these action items done. So let's take a look at the action items from the resolution and say,
Yeah.
which ones are still relevant,
Gotcha.
to us, which ones raise to the level of importance, and which ones are missing. And that's how we came up with the platform for the subcommittee.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. A quick follow on to that then is, and I think it is relevant to where we are at as a committee, and that is, um, uh, the consultations you held in the course of last year, and how wide were those consultations? What groundwork was done to end up with that resolution and the action items even? And so I think it would be useful for us to know how consultative that process was, who you spoke with, and what traction there is for these issues in the county.
Yeah, so it was a pretty exhaustive process. So literally, I would say I received contacts from each one of the council people in terms of where to get started, to get people's ideas. We also posted sort of calls for ideas and calls for review on all of the Facebook Live sites associated for the islands. So either, Friday Harbor Rant and Rave, Orcas Island Rant and Rave. We also really worked with the Black Lives Matter group for San Juan Island. They had limited involvement, but reached out to them. They looked at it and said, look, you've got all the good stuff in there. So, and that's their level. We'll help you get signatures. We also got the support of the women's group, coalition group. They supported it.
Yeah, the Orcas Women's Coalition, yeah.
The Orcas Women's Coalition. Also, Odd Fellows was also a part of the process to get people involved, as well as I want to say Surge.
Yeah, Surge.
Surge on Orcas, as well as the LGBTQA group on the island as well. And so we had a pretty broad coalition. I would say we had probably 5 anchor groups when I think about it: the Women's Coalition, Surge, Black Lives Matter. So we had 5 coalition groups, as well as we used sort of those 3 social media sites. We also published articles in Orcas Island Sounder. We also did one on the issues. So we got, we were able to gather a lot of input. We shied away from putting the coalition on the national site. Like, what's that? The national site you can get signatures on. It's not changed that on. There's like 3 main big ones, but we moved away from those and really used more of a local Google form, because we wanted it to be island focused. We said, hey, okay, if we get all these signatures, but we have no idea if these signatures represent the views of the people who are on San Juan Island, I don't know what we do with it. So we try to keep a local focus to that degree.
Did you have any from Lopez Island at all, or was it just San Juan Island?
I think only, I would say, if they were part of one of those associated groups.
Okay.
So whether it's Surge or the LGBT, and I think some of them did, and they were really good at reaching out to their partners at the other islands.
Okay.
And so we really try to use a coalition, whether it was a women's coalition or Surge, or to just say, hey, who do you know in the other islands that could provide us with some input?
Right. Okay.
No, I just want to say, in case anyone doesn't know, that SURGE stands for Stand Up for Racial Justice.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, other questions for Kevin? I'm realizing what time we're at here.
Kevin, was the resolution ordinance combo, was this the one that was written with the help of Kyle Loring over here and a private attorney? Who wrote the kind of the final language?
I would say there were some, you know what, I think Rick had proposed a resolution, maybe, well, the way this actually came about was I had given a talk on race and racism back in February of last year. And that spurred Rick to want to come up with a resolution. That spurred him to want to pull a group of people together. I was one of those people. He offered some ideas on what could make for a more inclusive community. We all offered ideas. Again, this is more Orcas Island folks. He took that and then he turned that into a resolution and then had some of his own ideas. It didn't go anywhere. And he said, you know what, I think I overestimated people's energy around this. And I said, well, let me take it from here and let's just get more robust feedback, more robust ideas, more signatures. So at least making people take it more seriously. And so I don't know where the very first starting document I got originated from. But having said that, I would say by the time the final resolution was presented and or developed, it was significantly different than whatever we started with. I mean, it was literally, I would say, at least 65% different.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, in terms of the values being added, changes, word choices changes. most of the action items were not, in that resolution.
Can I ask,
That was
Kevin,
given.
Kevin, why did those action items come out, and how do you feel about that process?
Well, I'm not a politician. So essentially my take at the time was, hey guys, I mean, if it's important that you all don't have resolution that have ordinance like actions in them, and that you're going to come back and either turn this into ordinance or do something, who am I to say you hogwash? I don't know county government. Having said that, I said, if we just have a resolution with some words and not the action items, it is kind of hogwash. So I said, hey, I'll take you on your word, which is, if you're splitting this up, that we're first going to pass our vision and our mission and our values, which represents what was passed. And then you're going to work on and codify our actions. I'll take you on your word.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, well, that's what we really want to make sure that happens, and we
Right.
want to see how we can actually get that into the structure,
Right.
of the charter. I was looking over the King County Charter and just saw some things in there that I thought we might, discuss bringing into our charter. One of those things was to possibly have a public defense advisory board and restorative justice circles. Those are actually in the King County Charter.
And give me a sense of, is the San Juan County Charter Review Commission, you all are, give me a little background.
About the
Okay.
whole group or each of us?
Yeah. It just dawned on me that if my wife says, who are you talking to? I'd go, well, I was talking to the San Juan County Charter Review Commission. She goes,
You
like,
know.
what? I said, who are they? I go like, well, you know who they are, but go ahead.
Well, we're one committee of the CRC. We are the Justice and Equity Committee, and we're a small committee, and we're white people. So we want a lot of input. We want to make sure we're doing what is really needed and desired. And that's why we're very grateful to have you and have your working group to advise us.
The commission, I think, the sort of the legal background. So San Juan County is one of 7 out of Washington's 39 counties. That's a home rule that allows, with some leeway, allows the public, really the citizens, a greater capacity to kind of decide and amend and shape the constitution or the governance that they want to live with.
Oh, okay.
And so I think it was 2005 or 2000. I think it was proposed in 2005. So freeholders were elected in the county about 15 years ago. And built into that process is a review, the first one after 5, and then every 10 years after that. A representative subset of the county is elected into the commission to go back through a collaborative process and evaluate whether the document still fits the model of governance that people want. And so, some of the examples are, some of the other committees are looking at whether certain positions make sense as electeds versus appointeds. There's as I mentioned, I think earlier, there's a group on, covering climate and environment, and, really thinking about some of the key issues that are important to people that might shape governance and the charter. So you're not alone. I think a lot of people, one of the things that I'm trying to do, so this weekend, Friday, Saturday, we're hosting our first set of town halls, looking to kind of collect from, members of your oversight committee, anyone in the county, ideas that they want to kind of champion for changes to the charter. But then the specific document is really poorly understood by most people, and what it accounts for, what it doesn't allow. So I don't know if that
Very
helps
good.
you understand
No,
it.
no,
better.
it does. No, it's very good. Your work is to be commended. It's needed.
So Kyle was just making a plug for attending the town hall on either Friday or Saturday, if you can.
Now, is there an
And
announcement for that somewhere? Where do I?
the information is on the San Juan County website, and there you will
It should be in
find,
local papers too.
yeah, you will find the Charter Review Commission link on the San Juan County website, and that's where you can also obtain all manner of information about the different committees that we've struck. And but the first thing you'll see on that site is the town hall.
There you go. I'm going to post it on my social media, my personal
Awesome.
social media. There we go.
Awesome. So this is, yeah, to just add on to what Sharon and Kyle have already said, this is very, very foundational stuff that we're taking stock of in terms of how this, as Kyle said, it's the constitution of our county, and we have some flexibility to be progressive in that, to be forward looking for sure, to be considering what will this place look like 10 years from now, and how do we want that charter to reflect the place we want to see ourselves living in 10 years from now, but even further out than that. And so the charter is really the nuts and bolts of local government, but it doesn't have to be as sterile as you may read when you look at our actual charter. When you look at it, I'll just to give you an example. I wrote to this this organization that is really a resource organization for all manner of local governments and municipalities, and they serve the public. And I can share the link with you, Kevin, if you'd like. I wrote to them after our meeting last week and asked, could you tell me of the other home rule charter counties, of which there, as Kyle just said, there's 6 others than us in the state. Which of those home rule county charters say anything about justice, equity, inclusion, diversity, anything like that? And what the guy came back to me with is that the majority of those have a clause, a very clear and explicit clause on non-discrimination. And the home rule charter in Snohomish actually has, I think it's a human rights commissioner or a commission, I can't recall now. The point being, if you look at our charter, and you're welcome to read it, you'll find a link to it on the site, on the CRC site. It doesn't even mention non-discrimination. It doesn't mention anything having to do with diversity in our population, right? So, I mean, so in other words, there's some very basic stuff we'd like to be seriously looking at to be included and have it go to the voters and at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good, particularly if we get ahead of the game. I know that one of the most intriguing conversations we had as we were changing language in the original resolution was this use of regardless of race, gender, that language comes out of 60 civil rights. It comes out of a belief in equality. But unfortunately, not unfortunately, equality is important. We live in a time of equity. And so now we're asking, how do you include equity language? Because equity is requiring you to see difference, to appreciate difference, but you need to use discernment and you need to use judgment. And that's a tough conversation because people will be like, wait a minute, I thought treating everybody the same, irregardless of difference, was where we were headed. Now you're saying you want me to be mindful of people's differences, to meet them where they are and provide equal access to what they need in order to be successsul. Yes. Oh my goodness. Are you kidding me? That's so hard.
I just want to I'm just mention this really quickly, but I've been working on issues of gender equality for 25 years, predominantly in international developing country contexts. Okay. And so, we're not even there in terms of equity. The discussion is about, you get to equity, you eventually can move to equality, experience that, and then you can experience empowerment. And so
Right.
indeed it's a trajectory. And so yeah, no, that's a very interesting distinction you make there. Yeah, absolutely, a really important one. So just I did speak with the county manager, Kyle and Sharon, along the lines of what we wanted to talk to him about last week. And so I wanted to update you on that before the end of the meeting in terms of what he said. He just gave me a brief snapshot of where they are as a county government in terms of acting on the resolution. And so they're not very far along the tracks, shall we say. There's a lot of work that needs to be done.
On the resolution, I thought the resolution was 2020 and the ordinance was yet to be.
Well, yeah, so the resolution, sorry, the resolution was passed. And so I was having a conversation with him about what has been done since it was
Now what?
passed. Yeah, there is no talk of an ordinance, of a specific ordinance at this stage in their minds. Okay. And he said that Cindy Wolf is going to be kind of the point person on the council who will be working with Mike and others in the county government to take that resolution and, discern what they want to do with it within county government. And so that's what we talked about today.
This fits, I was going to say to one of Kevin's earlier points, I think, and I'm curious if you agree, I don't see a whole lot of people who have been in, especially in legislative or executive, the senior parts of any county government, let alone ours. But I would love to hear from Rick Hughes, from kind of the foundational thought process and language and participation in some of the, some of the work process. At least that's what I'm hearing you say, Kevin. And, having ideas about how to solidify and institutionalize some of that, maybe through, means beyond the ordinance, which is really where we're trying to establish. And so, Mike is certainly the county manager, certainly a go-to, but who passed that, maybe except for current and near recent county council members, would be, part of that group. So, and I'd like to have that happen. Last week I wanted to leave you guys with, bringing some more names for people to hear from. I think former Commissioner Hughes would be a good one. So
that sounds like a good idea. I was also thinking, based on the conversation I had with Mike Thomas, that it would be useful to talk to Cindy Wolf, given that she is the person that she seems quite interested in working with the county government to do something with this resolution. And I think,
she is. This is a big thing for her.
So maybe both of them, Kyle, not in the same meeting, but I think Rick for the historical. Yeah, I know we're not going there. Rick for the historical perspective, absolutely, as that Kevin spoke to, and then Cindy for sort of like moving forward into the future. And just so you guys know, something I did talk to Mike about. And Kevin, are you able to stay, or do you need to push off?
No, I'm good. I'm good. You all have me excited, so I'll push up. My wife did. She come around the corner and peeked at me, but I'm good. Which just says we're eating. You do your own thing. So there we go.
We haven't even started getting you excited. Just wait. But what excited me actually in this conversation with Mike Thomas was because I raised this issue with him, and that is, how would it be to construct a standing board or a standing commission within the county that was responsible for these kinds of issues? Because those are voluntary based commissions or boards. They once they're struck, they stay in existence in perpetuity, essentially. And what they do is they're individuals who are knowledgeable on a given subject matter, interested in it, and want to work on issues under that board or that commission to provide recommendations to council, but also to the government, to the county government, on a particular theme. And so I thought to myself, well, this strikes me, if we could get some language in the charter that was sort of quite intentional in terms of where our county wants to go in the future around the protection of some important themes and principles around diversity, inclusion, equity, as we've been discussing, to have language about that in the charter, and then perhaps have a body of passionate, experienced, knowledgeable people on these issues who come together. And this wouldn't be a cost to the county, because as we've talked about, we have to think about financial implications of amendments. And what Mike also told me was, you want to create a new position for the county government, automatically cost it out as $100,000 to create one position. Okay, so let's imagine hypothetically, we thought, let's create a commissioner on human rights, or a commissioner on equity, diversity, and inclusion. That would be $100,000. And guess what? We might end up competing with the environment folks who want to, maybe have ideas around that.
That's
So
very relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking, what if we had a commissioner or a board that was a standing body, that on this subject, on equity, diversity, inclusion, or something like that, and the mandate flows from what has been amended in the charter to solidify, the county's values in these areas. I don't know. So it's just off the top, but
That's one of the final action items in the at least the version of the ordinance draft that I'm looking at, calls for an oversight committee, and how to build it, and we could probably talk some about whether that was a full appointment by county council, or
Right.
the majority comes from here and others. And I think I'd refer back to Kevin, if there's somebody who kind of championed that through some of the resolution language work and among your focus group and the various signers on the resolution, I might want to hear from them, because there's no point in reinventing that.
Right.
There's clearly thought gone into, there is some reference to a specific stipend, but all that's on the table. And
Right, and that being said, we are not responsible for finding where those funds would come from.
You're right.
And it looks like there probably are places within the county government that we could find money. So, it's not like, that would cost $100,000, so we're not going to discuss it. No.
Oh yeah, no. I agree, Sharon. I do agree, and as we all know, islanders that we are, money can come from interesting places in this county. In other words, you can, there's endless entities that, you can tap for support and things like that. But anyway, to your point, Sharon, it's not, we don't want to preclude a conversation, because if it has dollar signs on it, right? Yeah.
I think it does
Right.
bear in mind, though, in order to get voter approval and to have, something like this move forward, for all the work we're going to put into it, there's a component of education, and I'm not sure, knowing the climate of employment in the county right now, when, a single person is doing 2.5 jobs in order to cost save, we're not going to get the education that we want in order to move some of this forward. So, and I'm not saying don't discuss it. I just, that's an ugly reality check that I don't like, especially when it's our work and my priority. But that'll be a challenge.
I will
Go
try
ahead,
to
Kevin.
track down some of the people that were championed certain planks, because when we did present the resolution, we did have people speak on behalf of certain action items.
Okay.
And so I'll track that down. So, because there were people who were intimately knowledgeable, but they were knowledgeable from the impacted stage, the impacted process, meaning this is how this hits me and the people I represent, versus then the other side. But I'll look at some old Texas and those kinds of things, because we did have for lack of a better word, a speakers group who could speak to each each element of, the most important elements of the action items.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
Good, because this is really the time right now. We want input, we want guidance, and this is tremendously helpful because, we're just here to do what's needed. So we need to know what's needed. And then we can figure out where we can put it. I didn't say anything about myself. I just quickly want to say that I'm from New York City. So I lived many years in New York City, and I think Kevin, my partner Michael Hurwitz, we came out here together in 2001, and I mean we'd already been out here together, but I was really struck by how white Orcas was, and I did wonder if there was a problem here, and it wasn't 100% white, so I figured, well, okay, but it did make me uncomfortable coming from New York City, and I'm glad to see that there are more people of color in San Juan County. I've been studying Spanish just to get fluent because I studied years ago, but I wasn't fluent, so I want to really be able to connect with the Latino population here. And I'm just, I've been talking to some of my friends to say, have you had any negative experiences? How do you feel, in the community? And overall, the response has been very positive, which makes me feel really good. But I know there also have been problems from time to time. And, just in terms of one of my friends, her kids were teased in school at one time. And I said, let me know if you want me to get involved in that. And she said, it's not necessary, but, I certainly was ready to do that. And think we have educating to do to know how to be sensitive to how we treat other people and in how we communicate with each other and how we kind of reach people that might be experiencing some fear or resentment.
mhm.
And I organized the first Black Lives Matter March on Orcas, I guess it was like 6 years ago or something like that. And I had reached out to the sheriff's office because I wanted them to know we're going to do a march in East Sound. That is the famous 2-block march or whatever. But I wanted to make sure we were doing things properly. So I called the sheriff's office and I said, we're going to be having a Black Lives Matter march. And the white deputy said to me, all lives matter. So, of course, that was a teaching moment for me to explain to him why we were specifically pointing out that Black Lives Matter. But I don't know whether there is any education going on here,
Yeah, like I said, we had the one with the school leadership, which went really, really well. We want to broaden that, and I guess this is why your committee is so great, because what we're finding is, as people get a little bit of traction, like I think there was somebody working in the social justice area as well. But when each one of us gets a little traction, then it gets hard to manage. Meaning, as I dive in to make sure what I deliver to the school or whatever it makes sense to teachers and helping them do what they need to do with their peers and with students, well, then it's hard to manage a group because you're focusing on delivering, not on managing. And so I think one of the issues at play, and you mentioned in terms of could there be a person, could there be a staff, could there be a role assigned? I think just, someone who's just coordinating things, allows people who are subject matter experts to do what they do and not also try to rally, organize, and because that makes it difficult to get stuff done.
For sure, for sure. Well, you guys, I'm gonna have to. I'm just conscious of the time. It's now 5:20, and we have a few things on the agenda that we need to just touch base briefly on before we finish up. And if you'll be okay with finishing up at 5:30, we've got about 10 minutes, if that's all right with everybody. Can we? Are you all right if we refer now to the agenda and touch on a few things that I've listed here? Is that okay?
It's great with me. Yeah.
Okay.
I think for Kevin's sake, just not that he has to go, but if you do have to go, and I don't know how to pronounce Berto's last name, but
Gandara. It's Gandara.
Gandara. Okay. We want to hear from him also. I don't think I mentioned him before, and he's coming, at this point, he's coming next week. So I would say, if you had time and wanted to come back, that might spawn some other thoughts. I'm good with that. Can we give you a heads up about that later in the week? Kevin, is that okay with you to just talk about
Yeah.
that? Okay.
All right.
I'm
well,
glad
then,
you're
we'll do some of
excited.
that. I'm gonna go grab my food then.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Thank you very
But
much.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you later. Thank you.
Really
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
your input. Okay, great. Excellent. And then Kyle, he might share with you some of those contact names, I imagine, then?
Hopefully.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay.
Hmm.
So you, just really briefly, like maybe 2 minutes on sort of operational issues. Kyle, I wanted to confirm that you're still okay with co-leading this. Does that work for you?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. As long as yeah, because I kind of dumped you into that with me early on. So, I just wanted to ask if you're still all right with that.
Yeah. I think when we go back and forth, there's just a little difference in meeting architecture is, I don't know if it's valuable, but yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
I
Okay.
couldn't do it solo, and I wouldn't impress that. I'm glad that Sharon's taking notes. That
Yes.
is,
Thank you, Sharon.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Carry
Okay.
on.
Excellent. Excellent. So I just wanted to, format for the minutes, Sharon. Do you want to kind of do a hybrid of what you do with your detailed notes and actual minutes, or how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm endeavoring not to take too many notes. I did take a few notes on our conversation with Kevin, and we could have
Okay.
a set of notes that's just long, and then just very then just minutes. We talked about. We had a discussion with
Yeah.
Kevin. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
say anything else. I mean,
Okay.
but you can tell me what
Okay.
what you want. You see what I have here, and if you want something briefer, then we can put this under notes and then have just a very, very quick.
Sounds good. Okay, we'll send along the next version, and if we have any feedback, we'll let you know.
Good.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for taking those. And so, in terms of uploading the agenda for the next meeting and the minutes for the previous meeting and recording, etc., I think Kyle, the way we should manage that is whichever one of us is chairing, we're responsible for uploading for that meeting. If that sounds okay.
That's great. And you did that on Sunday, which is awesome. I won't do the embedded agenda again. I thought that would be useful one page, and I didn't find it. I like being able to pull out a separate page. So I like it.
Okay.
I commit to that.
Okay, and I got that from it was Olivia who sent it to me. They're trying to formalize the structure for all of them. So
Format. Okay.
Yeah, what I'm doing right now is I'm taking notes
in it, right?
in it, and then it's already saved.
Exactly. Yeah. So she said, these are the agenda templates you're meant to, this is the agenda template you're meant to use. So that's why I went with that. Weekly reporting back to the full CRC. So we'll need to do that. We'll need to have a brief report back on Wednesday. So Sharon, you did it last week. Do you, who wants to take a crack at that this week?
I can do that. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Excellent.
We're all gonna get there at some point.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's great. I'm just skipping over to agenda item 6 right now, which is brief report back from committee members on further sort of study that we've done. Also included that though is in the create list of speakers to invite and tentative dates. So as I said, I had a discussion with Mike Thomas. I'm happy to put a couple notes on that to you for information only. So I can share with you what I discussed with Mike in an email, and just so you can read it. We can talk further about it next week if you'd like. And that'll save me from having to go into any more detail today. But
did you approach him about coming back specifically?
To this group, he would if we'd like him to. Yeah, absolutely. Were there any other things you wanted to share about what you've further research you might have done, or ideas for speakers' names for forthcoming weeks, which we're looking 2 weeks out now because we'll have Berto next Monday, hopefully.
Yeah, I think I'm still waiting to hear back from the I don't even know how to call him, Judge and Mr. Loring, I guess, about
Okay.
their perspective. And it was interesting. I was really certain that Kyle had written that the language of that the resolution. I need to go back to Kevin's notes and make sure I understand what his history was. But I think they would be valuable. I know that Kevin had some, Ranker had some names from both the Lummi and Coast Salish communities. I really, really value hearing that.
Right.
At some point. And maybe I kind of propose maybe we kind of cover a topic and then try and sort of shift to the next one. I don't know if that's the right way, but there are a number of people to hear from.
For sure.
There are a couple of people, there's one particular family on this island that work in emergency medical services. They're translators for the court system. They'll go to the sheriff's office and translate for incarcerated people. They're raising a family here, and so they touch all different manner of community points. And I haven't approached them, but I'd love to have somebody that fits that bill from the Latin community.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really good. That sounds really good.
It would be probably, I dare say, more dry, but there are two people from county government, the county human resources person potentially, and then the director of social services. So the county HR person is a fellow named James Wolf, and then Barbara Brash, I think, would be really interesting on the topic of county services around other and disabilities.
Yep. Okay.
So
excellent.
Somewhere in the mix, I'd like to hear from those three people.
Okay.
And I know, Sharon had some names, I think.
Well, I just want to say, I know both James Wolf and Barbara LaBrash, and I think they would be wonderful for us to talk with.
Okay. Excellent. So when we talked about Rick Hughes and Cindy Wolf as well, wait, there was one other thing that came to my mind, and Dave Anderson, his wife works in the court system with juveniles, if I'm not mistaken. But he said that she, I mean, this is her career. This is the nature of the work she does.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that she could be available to speak with us as well. So that could be. So I can talk to Dave a little bit more about that.
He's still on with us.
He's on the meeting here, yeah.
Oh, is he? Okay, I can't.
Can you unmute? Dave, can you unmute if you're still there?
Dave, are you there? I've got 4 participants.
I think it's actually Dave's lookalike. I think this is Linnea Anderson. I've just
it is.
listen because this is such a passionate topic of mine. So thank you.
Oh, it's you, Linnea. It's actually you.
You are Dave's wife.
Yes.
Feel free to flip on your video.
Oh.
We do. Yeah.
Hi.
Well, listen, why don't we schedule you in to have to hear you chat with us in a couple of weeks' time?
Sure, I would be happy to. I recognize your work is primarily around legislative and executive branch, but we are a small but mighty co-equal independent branch, and happy to share the lessons we've learned. Yeah, that
would be much appreciated. Yeah. Okay.
Sure. So I think 2 weeks out is the 22nd.
Yeah.
Yep. I plan to just as frequently as possible to be available for your meetings, just to listen in, because it is such a passionate topic of mine, both professionally and just personally. But I would be interested, I'm sure, you don't have to do it off the cuff, but if there's specific things that you'd want to know, or you want to provide some guidance, I'm happy to try to customize. If you'd want visuals, I could do that as well.
Great. And if you don't mind, just can you send us a little paragraph on the nature of your role in okay, just send us 2 lines or something, just so we have a sense of where you're situated, and then
send us your bio.
Exactly. And your CV. That would be wonderful, Linnea. Thank you so much.
Okay, sure.
And very pleased to have you join us whenever you can. So
thank you. Great.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, excellent. I think so if you guys would, in terms of, do we want to have a consolidated list of these names then and start scheduling them in, or how would you guys like to handle that?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, do you want to do that as part of the minutes, Sharon, or what do you think?
Well, I got a list in the minutes.
You got a list, it's in the minutes, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, and I just, so I put down that we want to talk with James Wolf and Barbara LaBrache. We don't have them scheduled yet. We just talked with Linnea about having her talk with us on the 22nd. Next week is the 15th. We've got Berto Gandara
Yep,
and maybe also Kevin Carter again.
right.
So do we want to see if we can get James and Barbara to talk with us on the 29th?
We could do that. Yeah. Yep.
Or do we want to have an extra, I don't mean, I would, if you want to have an extra meeting so we can talk with people sooner than that'd be okay too.
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea. I think what would be good, because I mean, Kyle mentioned a few others. He mentioned, well, Kevin talked about two
Lummi
First
people.
Nations representatives, Coast Salish and Lummi, and also there was, and Kyle, you mentioned Kyle Loring and his the judge,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I think we need that.
Right.
I think we need a full list of all these names, and then we need to think.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Also speak with, right, so we've got Kyle
Go ahead, Linnea.
and,
oh, did you want to say something? Sorry.
You're
Sharon,
muted.
go ahead. You're
Oh.
muted, Linnea.
You're muted.
I get, thank you. I'm appointed by Judge Loring, and it could make sense for her and I to co-present. So I could
Oh.
also reach out to her to see if a Monday afternoon would work, and she and I
Okay.
could maybe do something together.
Hey, that
What's
would
your
be
sense
great.
of that, Linnea? Is that open in the docket usually now?
Well, so Monday is a heavy court day, but generally we're done by 3:30 unless we have something blow up, which is always possible. And then she usually kicks it to me. So, we can always work something out, but it may make sense. Just, I know you have limited time, that maybe she and I could do something together.
Yeah.
You may
yeah.
have similar questions for us.
Sounds
That
good.
heads up time of 2 weeks might be all she needs.
I'll reach out to her, and tomorrow I'll send you all an email with a status update of what I learned from her and some of that other information you requested.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
I
And
did
how do
leave
how do we
Kyle
pronounce
Loring a message today, so it shouldn't
Sorry.
be totally new
Great.
to her.
Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted
Great.
you, Kyle.
No.
How do we pronounce your first name, though?
Oh, Linnea.
It is Linnea. Okay, well, I wasn't sure. So, okay, all right, wonderful. Thank you. That's
Thank you.
fantastic. Okay, excellent. All right, so guys, so we'll leave it to you, Sharon, to do that list then within our minutes, and we can just populate it if there's anything missing, and then agenda item 7, revisit issues listed in the CRC spreadsheet. We'll kick that into next week if that's okay, and if we can just be thinking in our minds what we think about consolidation. Is that feasible, and what a number of the ideas are yours, Kyle. So I think it would be good if we hear from you in terms of how would we want those issues somehow, how to be captured.
I feel like we're kind of doing that on the fly, and how they melt together or differentiate is working for me so far. And appreciating Kevin's comment last week that we need to really sort of start to coalesce around the top 3 or 5 or something. Then
right.
I don't feel like anything major is left out. The consular office is a really big reach. I'm not married to that, and that would be expensive, but thanks.
Okay, excellent. So we'll put that on the agenda for next week, that agenda item again then. And I think number 8 is agree on questions for Sheriff Krebs. Again, I'm looking at time, and I don't know if we feel we need to do that right now. I think that if we have questions, we can just ask him things we may wish to ask him, although there was a request from Kevin Ranker in our meeting last Wednesday to send any questions we might have for him in advance. So I just realized that, and we were meant
By
to
tomorrow.
by tomorrow. So do we have, as a committee, do we have questions we feel we would like to put to him that are floating in our heads right now, or?
I'm less, there's I know Sheriff Krebs. He's a friend. I don't think that makes me fearful of asking direct questions, but I want to have him sort of free speak on a topic,
Yeah.
and address sort of more openly, what's your sense of, what's a snapshot of equity from a law enforcement perspective, more than specific gotcha questions or
Yeah.
targeted questions.
Yep.
That's my thought at this point. So
Can you say, I'll put it in, should I put that in the minutes? Can you want to just restate that question once more?
if I ask a question, they're more sort of open-ended, and having
Yeah.
him talk about his idea of snapshot questions as opposed to targeted.
Yeah.
I said gotcha questions, which is not really fair, but I mean, there's an impression. There's some impressions about what kind of job his teams are doing on that front, and I don't want to shut the conversation down. I just want to hear from him. And
Well, Kyle, you just made me think. It is Resolution 31, 2020 that we're talking about, is the one that was passed last year. And I'll share with you again, Kyle, the link that Randy sent to us to this document that's on the website. But I wonder.
I can grab it if it's there.
Okay, but I wonder, Kyle, if why not pose sort of like a broader question about, his perception of this resolution. You know what I mean? Like find a way to
Yes.
ask him a broader question that speaks to the existence of this that was created in a very tumultuous year, right? So
Mhm.
I don't know. Would that be helpful for you to?
I think it's a great starting point.
Okay.
If questions kind of refine around that, whatever he has to say about that, I think we should have the opportunity to ask those. But I don't have policy questions for him to specifically.
The only thing that really comes to mind for me is that, what, if any, racial justice, equity education is taking place for our local police?
Sure. Okay. Anything else, Sharon, or is that kind of your specific question you'd like to ask?
That's my specific question.
Okay. So I'm willing to offer, if you guys are okay with this, to put together just 2 points we would like to raise, and send them off to Kevin. So one would be we are interested in hearing him speak to some of the principles and values that are embedded within this resolution, and what that resolution means to his force, if you will, his office. Okay.
The challenge, yes, I agree with that. The challenge is how to word it so that there's a relationship that's developed, not always, but between sort of putting somebody in law enforcement on funky footing.
Yeah.
And this is, if there's ever a place where, he doesn't have to really answer to us. Certainly our stuff is public, and I'm sure there's sensitivity, but I really want to hear his gut positioning and his headspace on it, as opposed to what he thinks I might want to hear or what we might all want to hear. So I don't know how to do that, but do you follow? You guys follow what I mean?
I do. Yeah, Sharon, your thoughts on that?
I don't have any.
Okay, so that's fine. I think I'll tell you what, you guys. I'll just craft a couple, 1 or 2 sentences around what we might want him to speak to in relation to that resolution, and I will also prepare just a 1 sentence on. We'd like to know what kind of anti-racism training is made mandatory, essentially, for the workforce that he oversees, and is any of that happening? Is that if I word it along that way, Sharon, is that okay?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that's fine.
Okay, so I'll flip that to you guys tonight, and just give me a thumbs up or edit, and then I'll shoot it off to Kevin. Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. And then I think that's any new business. Was there any new business we wanted to raise for today?
Nice work, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Keep it in the line.
Trying. It was great. It was a good meeting, you guys. And apologies for going over time, but little technical difficulties at the outset. So anyway, and I will share with Kyle the Zoom login ID and password, Kyle, so you can do that a little more seamlessly next week.
So we're good for the speaking team for next week so far. It's Berto and Kevin if he wants to come back. And
Yeah,
how about okay, that sounds good.
it's probably enough, I think. But I like the point Sharon made about maybe we need to have an extra meeting or two just for the purposes of hearing from a speaker or two or three. So can we talk
Outside
about?
of our, not tacked onto the end, but another
Yeah.
one in the week.
Yeah, can we talk about that next week and consider that together?
Yeah, let me capture that as an agenda item.
Okay. Yeah, so there's that, and then there's a couple of additional items we need to revisit from this agenda. Yeah, so that would be, and I'll just number them. That would be, number 6 again, we'll probably touch base on. Agenda item number 7, that revisit issues listed on the CRC spreadsheet. So 6 and 7 would be ones you might want to rebuild back in next week,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Okay. Is there anything else for discussion, or should I ask for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Hey, everybody in favor?
Hi.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, guys. That was really productive. Really appreciate it.
Very good.
Thanks for
Okay.
joining, Linnea. She's
Bye,
gone.
Linnea.
You got
Have a good evening, you guys. We'll see
You
you
too.
on Wednesday.
Very
Okay,
good.
Bye.
so long, you guys.
Good night now.
Yeah.
Hey,
Bye.
did we all share phone numbers? Sharon, did we get your phone number?
Oh, should we put them in the minutes?
I don't know if you want to do that for the public record.
Okay,
It's
right,
gonna be an
okay.
email though.
Right, let's see, I
whatever
think,
whatever
Kyle,
you want.